In today's video, I am going to be breaking down Kiyan Anthony and how he shoots the basketball. He is one of the best up-and-coming basketball players, and it just so happens to be Carmelo Anthony's son. So let's get down, let's check him out really quickly. If you want to be able to shoot the basketball better, make sure to go check out the link that is down in the description below for the shooting workout. Let's get down, let's check him out. Okay, so right here, coming off of this screen, what do we see? Well, coming off the screen, he comes to a jump stop on both feet. At this time, he's looking straight at the rim, and he's obviously, at this point, aiming and knowing where he needs to shoot. So many players don't look at the rim at first, they're looking at defenders, and then when they go up into their shot, they tend to then look at the rim. At that point, it's too late. You need to be able to register where the rim is early on in your shooting form. When he comes to the jump stop also, his feet are pointed in the exact same direction, and then if we go into slow motion, knees, hips, shoulders are all in the same direction. This is extremely important. And yes, while he is tilted away from the basket, and old school shooting coaches will say that this is a terrible shooting form because you're supposed to be always squared up. That's not the case. Your body just needs to be squared in the same direction all the way along. You can't be having one part of your body out. You can't be having your shoulders facing this way and your knees facing this way. It's not going to work, and you're not going to have a consistent jump shot. But that's not like Kiyan Anthony. He has a very nice shooting form. When he goes up into his shot, he's still looking at that rim. And then he has a nice high release with his elbow above his forehead. He's jumping straight up and straight back down. He's not drifting left or right. This is a perfect shot. Now going into this shot right here, we can see that his right knee does somewhat go in and get close to his right knee. However, they're all still pointing in the same direction. Now, he has a low gather, and his wrist is not at 90 degrees. It's actually a straight wrist. Now, a lot of shooting coaches say you have to see the wrinkles when you're in that gather position, but you don't. Believe me. And going up into his shot, his elbow is even out. Now, why is this the case? Why does he have such a consistent shot, yet his elbow is out? Well, by the time he goes up into his shot form, up into his set point, which is actually quite low, it's a one motion shot, so it doesn't stop anywhere along this shooting line, which is right about here. That's his shooting line. When he starts going up into his shot, we can see that his shoulder and elbow are in line with the rim, and at least a quarter or half of the ball is over top of that arm, over top of that upper arm, which creates that shooting triangle that I always talk about. And he doesn't have a thumb flick. He has a nice soft release. This is actually a very nice shot, yet a lot of older school coaches will say it looks terrible. We can actually see right here, I really like this angle because now when we see him going up into his shot, we can see right here, it's a nice one motion shot. His shoulder, elbow are in line, and while his hand is a bit high, his guide hand is a bit high on this ball, or at least higher than a lot of shooting coaches will say, he doesn't have a thumb flick. He releases it early, and that's very important. And especially being able to go straight up and straight back down with your shot, the basics are there. And what I mean by the basics are not necessarily what all coaches will say are the hallmarks of a great shot, but straight up and straight back down, he's inside of his shooting cylinder, which means that he is not going to get the foul. If he gets hit, it's going to be the defensive player. He has a soft release, one motion all the way up, zero thumb flick. His body is all tilted in the exact same direction, and he holds his release. He keeps it up there for a good amount of time before he drops it. Now, there are times where you can drop your release early. That can sometimes create a faster release. However, that takes a lot of practice. And then when we see the actual drop on this shot right here, we can actually measure it quite well. And the drop on the shot is about 40 degrees. You want to be in that 40 to 45 degree range from three, because if that shot, for example, comes into shallow, the rim is going to look too small to the ball, and it's going to rattle in and out or potentially just hit the front or back of the rim and pop off. While a shot that comes in too steep, if it hits the rim, it's going to have too much power, too much gravity behind it, and it's going to bounce off. If you're within that 40 to 45 range, as we see right here, roughly in this range, you are going to have an absolutely perfect shot as long as there's enough rotation on that ball. Around 2.5 rotations on that ball will get you a nice soft hit on that rim, so it has a higher chance of having what they call a shooter's touch for it to bounce in. And really watch his one motion all the way up. He brings the ball from his waist up into his set point, which is just above his forehead, and then he goes to release the ball. Yet again, zero thumb flick. He's got a very consistent shot, and that's going to be another part of Kiyan Anthony's shot, and that is the fact that it's the exact same shooting form over and over and over and over and over again. And then if we watch the actual feet of his shot, he plants them both at the exact same time. He has 90 roughly on his hips and 90 on his knees. This is going to give him optimal power. We can actually measure it like this. We're looking at roughly 97, which is pretty good. 90 degrees is what a shooting coach would say would be perfect. And then if we look at his knees, we can see that his knees are around 90 degrees as well, which a shooting coach would say that is perfect. And then when we go up into his release, or at least into his set point, we can see that, at least from this angle, you can kind of think or feel that it's almost a perfect angle to be able to see this, but he's at around 85 degrees on his elbow. And remember, coaches, at least shooting coaches, will say you need 90, 90, 90, which means 90 here, and 90 on the wrist. That would be a perfect shot, at least to an old school basketball shooting coach. We have 90 on the elbow. We definitely have 90 on the shoulder and on the wrist. In my opinion, if you don't have 90 on the wrist, it's hard for some players to be able to get their hand all the way back and it's uncomfortable. You don't necessarily need to have that. In fact, I coach a player who has a very good shooting form. He finished a whole weekend in 2 games shooting. It was about 18 shots. I think it was 18 shots. This was a year ago. 18 threes, and he hit 65% of those 18 threes, or 64%, whatever the math was, out of those 18 threes over 2 games. The next day, an executive of the club that I was coaching for at the time changed his shooting form, saying it could be better, and he was trying to get his wrist farther back. That dropped that player's shooting percentage from 60% to 20%. If something is not broke, you do not fix it. And that took a whole entire 8 months to be able to get that shot back to where it is now today, which was around that 50-60% range. Yes, the kid is good. Could his shot be better? Potentially. But are you going to mess with somebody who's shooting 50 or 60%? If you're shooting anything higher than 35% from 3 and you're young, that's good. Keep on working on your shot. If you can get up to 40%, you don't need to change anything. That's NBA range, and I'm talking in-game. I'm not talking shoot around from threes. If you can shoot over 40% from 3 in-game, you should not be looking to change your shooting form. You need to be looking to be able to potentially maybe create more power so you can get a farther shot, or potentially just working on your shot, different moves coming off of the dribble, coming off of different footwork, things like that. So I hope that this Kiyan Anthony shooting form video helps you shoot the basketball better, but if you're already shooting at a high percentage, don't change anything. Make sure to go check out my shooting workout that is down in the description below. It's going to help you shoot from further away, and I'll see you guys again in my next video.